All right, number 71. The directions tell us that we're going to base our answers to questions 71 and 72 on the bathymetric map below and on our knowledge of earth science. The map below shows the depth of White Lake located in Sullivan County, New York. Isoline values indicate water depth in feet. The surface of White Lake is 13.23 feet above sea level. Point A and B represent locations on the shoreline of White Lake. Point C represents the location on the bottom of the lake. All right, so that was the information. Here is the map. And it says, on the grid in your answer booklet, construct a profile to the depth of White Lake from point A to point B. So a profile, basically a profile is to show the changes of distance on our map. Okay, so when we draw the profile, we need to use scrap paper. It tells us further to plot each point where an isoline showing depth is crossed by line A and B. Points A and B have been plotted on the graph. Connect the plots with the line starting at A and ending at B to complete the profile. All right, so we have to know how to do a profile in order to answer this question. That's the only thing to it. So in your answer booklet, if you go to the back, you will find a piece of scrap paper that you can rip out to use for this part. So you're going to take the scrap paper. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to put it up to the line A and B. Okay? So when I do my profile between points A and B, I am going to make sure that I mark off every intersection that runs into the paper. Okay? And so when I do that, I'm also going to put the numbers that goes with those lines so that I can correctly place them on the isoline map. So as I can see, my numbers go by 20s. So if my numbers go by 20s and they go deeper with depth, as I go in, they tell me that line A and B are on the outside. Okay, so I know that I am going to be starting with, looks like 0, because the numbers go in deep. Okay, so I'm going to start with 0 at A, and then the next point should be 20, and then our next point should be 40, and then 60. All right, then I'm going to go to the other side. I'm going to do the same exact thing. 60, 40, 20, and then 0. And the reason why I know it starts at 0 is because B and A are on the outside of the line, and my numbers they decrease as I go to the outside of the line, and they increase as I go towards the center. Okay, so now that I have all my numbers placed on my scrap paper the exact way that I found them on the map, I am going to go to my answer booklet. Okay, and then I am going to place the scrap paper right on the lines of the profile, and then I'm going to plot them exactly how they are by moving the paper up and down. So they did 0 and 0 for me already. So I'm just going to move the paper down to 20, and I'm going to put my dot at 20 on that side, and I'm going to put my dot at 20 on that side, and then I'm going to move down to the next line, which is 40. I'm going to put my dot for 40. All right, and then last plots is 60. So one at 60 here, one at 60 here. So now that I have all my plots, I will connect my line. And so if I've done it correctly, I know that it should be looking something similar to this. All right. The next question says, States one possible depth for point C. All right, so on the map, I can see that point C is in the center. And I know that these numbers are going higher as I get towards the center. So 40, 60, 80. The next one will be 100. So if I want to know the water depth for C, I want to say something that is going to be less than 100, because if there was another line that will represent 100, but there is no line. There is only the letter C in the middle by itself. So with that being said, I know that I cannot use the number 100. I have to use something under 100. So my answer can be anywhere from 81 to 99. So you can say 85, you can say 90, or you can even say 95. But as long as you do not use 100 or 80, then you will be correct. All right, so I used a range of 85 feet to 90 feet just to be sure. Okay, next. The next page says, base your answers to questions 73 to 75 on the data table below and your knowledge of Earth science. The data table lists the distance from Earth to the moon and the percentage of lighted portion of the moon visible from Earth each day for a 9-day period. So they give me a data chart and they show me the approximate Earth-Moon distance, and then they show me the lighted portion of the moon visible percentage. As I can see, the distance from the distance from Earth and Moon, it varies over and over, and then it also varies in a percentage. So number 73 reads, on the diagram in your answer booklet, place an X on the moon's orbit to show the approximate position of the moon on day 5. The moon on day 5. So the distance is this number here. The percentage that's shown was 49%. So that being said, 49%, I know that that's half of the moon, or half of the moon is visible, right? 49%, close to 50%. So if I want to put an X on this diagram to show where the moon is at in its orbit, I know that it's 50% in its orbit around Earth. So 50% can be somewhere in that area. Okay, so I know that I will see 50% of the moon if I am located at this location here. 50% of the moon. We see that? All right, you can even put a little box there if you want to be sure that they see your X. All right, 74. State the number of days it takes the moon to complete one cycle phase from one full moon to the next full moon. So the number of days that it takes the moon to complete one cycle, that means that we have to look, or we have to know how many days the moon takes to revolve around the Earth and how many days it takes for the moon to revolve around the sun. So if we go to our Earth Science Reference Table and we use the solar system data chart on page 2, and we look at the moon, we go to Earth's moon and we look at the period of revolution. It's 27.3 days. The period of rotation also 27.3 days. But I know, or I should know from my Earth science knowledge, that the moon takes approximately 27.3 days to revolve. But because the moon also takes 27.3 days to rotate in its orbit around the sun, this is going to cause me, or cause the moon to take 29 to 30 days. So why does it take 29 to 30 days? Again, because the moon orbits around the sun 27.3 days and around Earth 27.3 days. So we add that extra little time on to the moon's orbit for it to get from one full moon to the next full moon. So the moon takes 29 to 30 days to go from one full moon to the next. That is one moon phase cycle, 29 or 30 days. Okay? All right. Number 75 says, explain how the data provide evidence that the moon has an elliptical orbit around Earth. So how would this data provide any evidence of the moon has an elliptical orbit? Well, what is an elliptical orbit? We know that an elliptical orbit is more like an oval shape, right? Or if they said a least or non-elliptical orbit, we know that it would be more of a circle shape. So since these have variations in the distance, then I know that these variations in distances will give me an elliptical orbit. Okay? So I can simply just say that the data shows that the distance from moon to Earth varies. And I'm just going to say over 9 days, okay? Because that's how many days the data table is showing us. So the data table shows that the distance from the moon to Earth varies over the 9 days, and that variation is going to let me know that I have an elliptical orbit, something more of an oval shape, to where the moon will have a greater distance to travel. Okay, that was number 75. All right, and we are on to number 76.